All right, so it's here. We have finally received MeatCanyon's maiden voyage into Manga with Melvin's Macabre. So it just showed up, I don't know, in the last hour or so, and I wanted to do kind of a live opening and immediate first impressions on it. Then I'll probably go away, read it real quick, and then do some more well thought out comparisons. And then maybe down the road we'll do something prettier, throw something prettier together. But I really just wanted to get my first impressions, first thoughts on this out. So let's take a shot at it. Let's see if I can do this without tearing it up. Watch and be amazed as I slice the book up. Nah. It's definitely, ooh, packaged well enough for that. Okay. We got it upside down. Perfect. Alright, well, light's giving it a heck of a reflection. So it comes plastic wrapped, which is why we're getting so much glare off of it right now. But so far, looking really good. Let me cut away and bust this open real quick. Okay, and we're back. And here we are with Melvin's Macabre by MeatCanyon. Honestly, this is really slick looking. I mean, I am a mega sucker for red on black, so this presentation right here is really doing it for me. Ooh, that's tight. So, as you can see, we get a nice dust sleeve, which is really good looking. And then we get this book underneath. This feels like more of a traditional hardbound, that it's kind of a glossy feel as opposed to something like a book cloth. But this is, anyone who's getting any contemporary or fairly modern hardbounds, this is probably what it's going to feel like. If you get like any of the Junji Itos that come with a dust sleeve, you should be pretty familiar with how this feels. Obviously it looks just like kind of a thumb through. Yep, there's the bowling one. There's gutter ball. There's earwax. I mean, just on flip through, this is looking really good. I was genuinely, honestly, it's funny, the one that I was thinking the most about how it would carry over would be gutter ball, because in the original animation, obviously it had more of that CG look to it. So I was curious if they were going to keep that, but no, it looks like the pins are animated in a very similar, or the pins are drawn in a very similar way to the rest of the world, Melvin and everyone else. So obviously that was an expected limitation that was going to come from converting an animation over to an actual drawing, manga style. But first impressions, it looks really good. It feels really good. This feels like a really tight, nice hardbound. This is not cheap. I mean, it costed $50, which in general is on the higher end of a hardbound. If you were gonna spend $50 on something that you could easily find retail, it would most likely be one of those deluxe editions, like a Berserk Deluxe Edition. I think those are in the $50 range if you buy retail. I'll do a couple more pricing comparisons later on once I get a chance to read it and get my thoughts together on it. But just on first impression, this looks really slick. This is really nice. This feels really good. So I'm gonna go give this a read and give you a more intelligent overview of it. And now we're back with my final thoughts on Melvin's Macabre by MeatCanyon. I'll apologize in advance if you can hear any traffic going by. Like I said, I kind of did this in a spur of the moment type thing. Wasn't super sure when this was actually going to show up, so I'm working with what I got here. So in reviewing this, a final overview, there are 3 categories I'm going to be looking into. And honestly, when I have any manga, especially a physical medium, these are the 3 things I look at. I look at the physical presentation relative to the cost of it. I look at the actual artwork, the physical presentation, and then I look at story. Does it read well? Is it good? And so, starting with the physical, as I mentioned earlier, it is a hardbound with a slipcover. And honestly, I feel like we don't get that many that are this nicely done anymore. I think the only mangaka who really gets this kind of treatment is Junji Ito. And even then, it's only a handful of the ones that he puts out. Usually they're going to be like a more standard hardcover. This isn't a Junji Ito, obviously, but this is more commonly what we're going to get. When you get a hardbound anymore, it's just a hard book. But Junji Ito's stuff tends to also get slip covers with this hardbound underneath, or dust covers, if you will. Dust sleeves. Lots of words. And so it is nice to see it getting that same kind of treatment as like a Junji Ito would. But with that said, I think it's worthwhile to also look at the price of it. And I'll be upfront about this. It's not really a fair comparison because this is definitely, from my understanding and from what MeatCanyon himself said, this is a limited run. I'm not going to say once and then it's done type thing because obviously we don't know that for sure. But this was his testing ground. This was him reaching out to his audience saying, hey, here, I have this. Take it or leave it. This is the cost of it, and this is the cost for something that no idea if there's really going to be much interest in it, which I think makes complete sense. So this was $50. Compare this to something like Kazuo Uematsu's Orochi, and this, I believe this was the perfect edition printing of it. There was an older paperback printing, if I remember correctly, but those have been long out of print. So this is the recent hardbound printing, which I think is pretty similar in how nicely it's done, how good it looks. This one is close to $30. I think it's $27 before taxes, so around $30 after. And again, very similar feeling. Similar with this. This is Junji Ito's. Well, this is Junji Ito's Uncanny, which this is not a manga. I think this is more of an autobiography, but the same kind of gist. This is about $30. So when you look at price, it's a little bit more than those other ones, but again, for a limited run, more or less one of a kind type of item, I totally get it. Honestly, what I would have liked to have seen is something like this, which I feel like you really don't see these anymore. So this is the Helsing Barnes & Noble print from 2006, somewhere in that area. They only ran a couple of these. So this is a slipcover, but it has a cloth texture underneath. Most of the ones you get now are going to be almost this sticky, almost plastic-like cover. Whereas this is more of a cloth. This is my optimal. This is, in my opinion, the best format for a manga to be printed in. But again, you really don't see these anymore. So this would have been my absolute favorite, but a close number 2 with the printing here. I really like this. This is a good physical presentation. I really like this. This is a 9 out of 10 to me. And now, how it'll hold up in the future, I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. It looks like a really solid binding, honestly. So I'm not too worried about this holding up to being open and closed a lot. So 9 out of 10 for me. Okay, and now I kind of want to get into the artwork. When you're reading it, what I feel like it invokes horror manga in general, I feel like tends to really invoke a lot of the feelings, obviously either through the story, but a lot of times through the artwork. This is definitely one of those stories where the art is conveying a lot of the emotion. I feel like it reminded me a lot of something like PTSD Radio, where you have a lot of these hyper detailed, creepy shots that are supposed to be where a lot of your feeling is coming from. And for that reason, I feel like if you enjoyed PTSD Radio, you'd really like this. Another one that I feel like pretty similar, Uzumaki. I mean, Junji Ito anymore is kind of the gold standard for modern horror manga, especially outside of Japan, where we have a lot more limited options available to us. But yeah, as you can see, Ito likes to have these super high detailed, really saturated images when he's trying to invoke a really creepy factor, the iconic scene of the dad in the bathtub. I feel like you get a lot of this when you're reading Melvin's Macabre. It invokes a very similar feeling. And the last one, I feel like, and this one is just kind of a no-brainer, though. It's very upsetting that Hideshi Hino's works are not as easily available to those of us outside of Japan, or at least English speaking, because I feel like the comparisons to Hideshi Hino's works are so striking, even just down to the main character we have. Let me see if I can get a good shot of him. I feel like the inspiration for how Melvin is designed is so it's so uncanny relative to the main characters that you have in Hideshi Hino's works. Again, a lot of very high detailed stills of creepy imagery just all over the place in Hino's works. Obviously, I just have one here. This is Red Snake, but he has a lot of works in his Hino horror series. I feel like this is probably the most apt comparison to the Melvin's Macabre stories, in that it's a similar looking character, but also there's a good amount of humor in the writing. Hideshi Hino's stuff is very tongue-in-cheek. I feel like a lot of the horror we get now, there might be some tiny visual gags, but it's not really there to make you go, ha ha. Unlike Melvin's Macabre, which definitely has some humor incorporated in it, no question about that. And I feel like it's a very apt comparison to how Hideshi Hino writes a lot of his works, in that you're not necessarily having a flat joke told, but a lot of times what is actually going on is so over the top, so silly, maybe making some kind of commentary, that you can't help but kind of chuckle at it, even if you're just chuckling at how grim it is. And honestly, that's my favorite type of horror in general. Obviously, when it comes to manga, I feel like our options are pretty limited in English. I mean, I know there are going to be many out there, but officially published. The first one that comes to my mind, bringing it back again, Hellsing. Hellsing was a big one. It's a big horror story that doesn't take itself too seriously. It throws in a fair amount of humor into the story that I feel like makes it a bit more lighthearted. I like some chuckles when it comes to my horror. I know that's, for some people, that's probably a little silly. Maybe that's even a little sacrilegious, but I don't like horror that takes itself too seriously. I don't have a copy of it with me, but another one I think of is Kurosagi Corpse Delivery Service. That's another one that has a bit of humor. And even when it comes to not even just manga, but like media in general, some of my favorite movies are Cabin in the Woods, Drag Me to Hell, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, The Room, movies that are unquestionably horror, but incorporate a fair amount of humor in it to kind of liven the mood, make it easier to digest. Right, Tommy? And so, with that said, honestly, Melvin's Macabre is like the perfect horror manga for me. It incorporates a lot of the things that I enjoy most about the medium. The artwork is great. The storytelling is great. It comes with a fair amount of humor. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And honestly, I give this a solid 9 out of 10 overall. It's beautiful. I don't have too many complaints about it. If I had any kind of complaint, and this is going to be the most silly, petty thing in the world that I could possibly say, it's just that it is pretty much a carbon copy of the animated works of Melvin's Macabre, which obviously that's the intention. And I understand going into something like this, something that is the pioneer adventure of Meat Canyon into manga. You want to do something safe. You want to do something that you know people already are enjoying. So it makes complete sense to me to go this route. But I would really love to see something original, something new put into this medium. If the sales are there, if the interest was there. It's really unfortunate to me that as of this moment that I am aware of, this was available to pre-order, but after the pre-order window closed, you can no longer order it. Maybe that'll change, but as of this moment, you cannot order this anymore. So if you like it, or if you really like the opportunity, I think it would be important to make that known, throw your voice out there, whether you're talking on social media, YouTube. Let Meat Canyon know you'd like to see more of this, but in my opinion, this was great. This was a great start. If we can get more of this, I think you could see some real success, some real popularity coming from this.
Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed my first impressions of Meat Canyon's new manga, Melvin's Macabre. If there's any interest, I would like to do a more well-thought-out overview of this, and I also have a bunch of other content ideas around manga and the horror genre as a whole. If you'd like to see more of that, please like and subscribe. Also comment whether you were able to pick this up or if you missed out on it and would like to see it get a reprint. Thanks!